Welcome to the next in our series of Knowledge Mobilization Flash Talks. We're so pleased to have Mark Blitz here, who is Project Director for the Comprehensive Assessment for Leadership and Learning. The Flash Talk series is supported by the United States Department of Education in partnership with the Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction and the Wisconsin Center for Education Research. Thank you so much for being here. And Mark, I'll pass it over to you to take it from here. Thanks.
Great, thank you, Annalie. Hello, everybody. Happy Friday, happy holiday weekend. Happy to be here with you, and we'll get right into it as people join our meeting here. Okay, we are talking today, among other things, but primarily about collecting action-based data with the Comprehensive Assessment of Leadership for Learning, or CALL, and I'll tell you about what that is, and I'll go through some of the background slides behind this work. So I'm the project director for CALL. I work out of a neighboring nonprofit called the Wisconsin Center for Education Products and Services, or WICEPS. And my colleagues, both professors in the Department of Education Leadership and Policy Analysis, among other roles, are Carolyn Kelly and Richard Halverson. They are not able to attend today, so I will hold the CALL torch today. So I'll talk a little bit about what this is before we get into some discussion. So CALL, again, Comprehensive Assessment of Leadership for Learning. So this is an online formative assessment and feedback system designed to measure school-wide distributed leadership. So we wanted to put in as much jargon as we could when we describe what this is. What we mean by being formative is that it is not meant to create a one-time snapshot of what's happening in a school. It is meant to measure and support growth over time. The feedback system is critical to this work. We won't have a chance to really look in depth into it today, but I invite you to check out the website and poke around and see some of the feedback that's provided. And we're measuring school-wide distributed leadership, and that's really the key here. And I'll talk a little bit more about what we mean by that. So this was developed and validated at UW over 10 years ago. The project started. It was funded by IES, and we completed the work around 2013 and have moved it to WICEPS, where we're now working in schools across the country. But at the time when this research project began, we wanted to develop an assessment tool that took a different approach to assessing and supporting a school level leadership. And it's purposeful that I'm using the word leadership here as opposed to leader or leaders, because we are thinking about leadership here as a function, and we're not focusing on any one specific person. And I'll talk a little bit more about why that's important, what that means. The mantra that I constantly have in my work with this is focus on the work. It seems so reasonable and logical. Of course, we want to focus on the work that people do, but that's not typically how things have been done. Typically, in leadership assessment tools or principal evaluation tools, we've seen a focus on the individual principal in a school. But we know from working in schools and working with schools, that's not really how leadership works. It's not really how schools work. Oftentimes, we see leadership as a function of people working together, interacting with one another, taking on leadership responsibilities. And these are people who are both formal and informal leaders in a school. So if we really wanted to focus on what's happening in a school, let's look beyond just the role of the principal, who plays a critical role. But oftentimes the principal acts more like an orchestra conductor, who's coordinating the work in the school, making sure everything's effective, efficient, harmonious, to continue with the metaphor here. It's not just the individual principal, who is, again, doing very important work. But if we want to focus on the work, we know that it's beyond just the role of that one person. So we utilized this idea of distributed leadership when we developed CALL, looking beyond just the role of the individual. So distributed leadership is the key component to how we understand our work and what we use to drive our work with the development of CALL. Ultimately, why we developed this is that we wanted to provide school leaders with action-based data for school improvement planning and professional development planning. So school improvement planning in schools oftentimes takes the compliance approach, where people are completing a form, they're relying mostly on outcomes, student learning data, student test scores, student attendance, really just kind of the results of where you want to be, right? So we might state a goal in our school improvement plan, and here's where we are with third grade reading scores, and here's where we want to be. And then we have on the other side the people who are responsible for meeting those outcomes, right? The teachers, the administrators, support staff. But there are other things that go on in between the people and the outcomes that we're not necessarily capturing in these plans. And that would be the various tasks and activities and routines and practices, really the things that people do, which again, intellectually makes sense. You know, well, of course we want to focus on what people do if we want to work on school improvement, but that's not typically what would happen. And it's not easy data to collect. So for this work, we want to assess what people do by focusing on the work, by asking questions about what people do, and providing data that's going to let them take action really with a certain sense of immediacy. They don't have to try to make sense of what the data is telling them. They don't have to wait several months after the assessment. So it's all part of this system that we developed that started with this research project at UW. And specifically, we're looking at what leaders do. But again, it's not just formal leaders, it's informal leaders, people who don't even consider themselves leaders, but they are doing this work anyway. So that really is, in a nutshell and in a kind of a whirlwind way, what CALL is, the comprehensive assessment of leadership for learning. So I hope I did okay on time there. Hopefully it didn't go too long. Okay, I think I got the official thumbs up from Annalise, so that's good. So we're going to get into a discussion now, and I know that more people are joining as we go, so we'll see how this gets divided up. So what I'd like for us to discuss is really kind of focusing on data. So you see some of the two of the question prompts on there on the left is, and they're kind of different perspectives to have. So what kind of data should be collected in schools to create meaningful school improvement plans? That would kind of be a good question for a practitioner, a school leader, a district level leader, people who are working in schools who want to create a meaningful school improvement plan. What kind of data do we think they should be collecting, or what we think that they would want to collect? And kind of back on the research end, if we wanted to assess, the effectiveness of a school, or effectiveness of a program, or effectiveness of leadership, what kind of data should we collect to complement summative student learning data, which has been kind of the one and only data source. Maybe, and I'm being a little reductive in that, but really we have focused so much on student standardized test scores. What other kind of data would we want to have to assess, again, the effectiveness of a program, of a school, of a leadership structure? And I just added that image there on your right to show you a little snapshot of the kind of data that's presented in the CALL reporting system, how the questions are focusing on the work, how we can perhaps look at a response and, as a school leader, make decisions on what we're going to do differently just from one singular item. So just to kind of give you a sneak peek, but we invite you to go to the website to check out some more. Again, this is 10 years in the making. Started as a research project, and now we're in the field. We have been in the field for quite a bit now. So that's my part in this. And Annalie, are we